As we're closing in here shortly on the holiday trade freeze, I thought it'd be an appropriate topic to discuss potential trade candidates. Now obviously, it's early, and therefore we can assume that some of these will be deadline moves. But even still, for fun of speculation, I thought I'd give my thoughts for the first time this season on some trades that we could see happening in the near future. And with that, here are 5 NHL players that could be traded and where they may end up. Pretty much since the beginning of the season, one name that has been circulating around in trade talks is Dylan Strome. As a forward, has been in and out of the lineup, first under former head coach Jeremy Colleton, and now current head coach Derek King. Even still, Strome has been attempting to raise his trade value on ice, and in doing so, has recently been inserted into the top line with Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat, as fellow center Jonathan Toews continues to struggle. Currently finishing out his final season of his 2-year, $6 million bridge deal, Strome is one of a few potential trade candidates on the struggling Blackhawks roster. Obviously, it is early, but considering the strength of the Central and the sluggish start that the team has had already, it's looking increasingly probable that Strome could be dealt to a cup contender. However, interested suitors do seem to be wary of his pending status. Even still, a 1-for-1 for DeBrusk is an obvious solution. Drafted the same year, both need a change of scenery, therefore it would make sense on the surface. Broadway could also serve as an interesting destination, as not only is Strobe's brother Ryan there, but the Rangers are also missing Sammy Blais and after Elvis Merzlikins inked his last deal in Ohio's capital, it's become increasingly clear who the reins in net now belong to, with Joonas Korpisalo being the odd man out. And unfortunately, so far this season, Korpisalo hasn't done much to bolster his trade value, as number 70 is currently sporting a .885 save percentage and a 3.95 goals against average. Even still, as most of us know, oftentimes a simple change of scenery can do wonders for a struggling player statistically. Obviously, considering his current struggles, it'd be pretty shocking if Edmonton took a swing at landing the pending UFA. If Jarmo Kekalainen decides to pull the trigger and attempts to get something for his netminder, it would make more sense, at least in my mind, to strike up a deal possibly with a team like Ottawa, Arizona, or possibly Montreal if they decide to move either Jake Allen or Carey Price later down the road. Just like Vancouver, another team that's already shaken things up early this season is the Montreal Canadiens. As the Habs, after a slow start to the season, have decided to clean house as far as the front office is concerned. But as a full-on rebuild is likely on the horizon, the speculation has continued to mount on whether or not some key veteran players will be sticking around, and among them is longtime Hab Brendan Gallagher. Given where the team is heading and his age, as he's almost 30, it's uncertain if number 11 will be up for sticking around. Despite the uncertainty, however, one thing's for certain: if Gallagher were to hit the trade market, the feisty forward would indeed garner lots of attention. Given his contract, however, which isn't set to expire until 2027 and sports an AAV of $6.5 million. Some GMs could be hesitant, however, due to the cap demands. Gallagher also has a modified no-trade clause which allows him to submit a 6-team no-trade list. A few teams that come to mind that could afford him are Anaheim, Detroit, and San Jose. Pittsburgh could definitely use Gallagher, but obviously the cap would be an issue. Things in Arizona, as of late, have went from bad to worse, as the drama continues to unfold in the desert. Now, considering the season they're currently having, and the overall situation of the franchise, it's pretty reasonable to assume that Phil Kessel doesn't want to stick around. With that being said, despite his struggles as a Coyote, the forward does have a reasonable price tag, as his base salary on the season is only $1 million. Considering his contract status, his age, and the clause on his contract, Kessel will most likely be dealt to a cup contender gearing up for the postseason. Obviously, Florida was a top destination that many saw Kessel potentially going to last deadline, and a couple teams from Kessel's past could also come into play. For starters, knowing that Brian Burke is now president of hockey operations in Pittsburgh, and that he once traded for Kessel, this could warrant a reunion for Phil the Thrill and the Penguins in the Steel City. Secondly, an even more interesting possibility is the Boston Bruins. After being traded from Boston to Toronto following his entry-level deal, Kessel apparently always had a soft spot for the B. As a forward, penning a trade in 2015, had Boston on his 8-team trade list. Hypothetically then, similarly to Zdeno Chara, Kessel would be potentially finishing things out in the NHL where they began, and even more favorably, with another championship under his belt. Speaking of one last run at the Stanley Cup, MarcAndre Fleury seems to have found himself in an interesting situation. As a netminder, after coming over from Vegas, has been in goal for a team that's most likely going to miss the playoffs. Obviously, given his stellar play throughout his career and Stanley Cup pedigree, Fleury is going to be highly sought after prior to the deadline. Even more attractively, number 29's contract is set to expire this offseason, therefore it wouldn't present a huge risk for prospective suitors. The only real obstacle is that Fleury does still have the privilege of presenting a 10-team no-trade list. Therefore, he still has some control over his outcome. Obviously, Pittsburgh wouldn't be on that list and would be the most favorable outcome for the Flower considering. Edmonton, however, is the team that makes the most sense, and lastly, Colorado could be another in the running for Fleury, as Darcy Kuemper could use some support, especially if the Avs are serious about making a deep playoff run.